Hi everyone, today I am here to bring you a short and sweet strength and mobility session for the ankles and the feet. As far as equipment goes for this workout, what you need is a mat or something to sit on, and you need a Theraband. The Theraband that I'm using today is of light resistance. Anything from light to medium is fine. I'll link the one that I'm using in the description below. And I'm sitting on my reformer box. That being said, you can just sit in a chair or on your couch for this. Okay, you just want to be comfortable. You don't want to be thinking about how tight your hamstrings are while we're trying to loosen up the feet. When you're ready, let's get started. All right, guys, so we are going to start standing today just briefly. I want you to take your feet about sit bone distance apart. Point your toes straight forward so that your feet are parallel to one another. And then you can take your hands on your hips or just rest them down by your sides. When you're ready, what we're going to do is we're going to lift all 10 toes up off of the floor. And then we're going to lower all 10 toes back down. And again, we're going to lift all 10 toes off the floor. And we're going to lower all 10 toes back down. So here we're just waking up the feet, waking up the toes, the fronts of the shins and the ankles. Nice. We'll do 4 more like this. Good. And 3. And you might notice already that like one of your toes just doesn't want to lift. Good. And 1 more time. Nice. Now lift all 10 toes up again, and I want you to see if you can put just your pinky toe down on the ground and then lift it back up. And we'll do that a few more times. Just the pinky toe goes down and then lift back up. And if it helps you to take your gaze towards your feet, that's fine. I'm working barefoot today, but you could also wear socks. Whatever is comfortable for you. Good. We'll do 2 more on the pinky toe. And last one. And relax your toes down for a brief moment. When you're ready, lift your toes again, and now we're going to go big toe, side of the foot down and up. And again, just that big toe and up. Now I can already feel that the arches of my feet are getting nice and active. I can feel the calves and the shins here working. And 3 more here. And 2. And 1. And then lower all 10 toes down. From here, we're going to start by lifting our big toe, then our second toe, then our third, fourth, and pinky toe. And then we're going to roll back down, pinky toe, fourth toe, middle toe, second toe, big toe. And again, rolling up from the big toe to the pinky toe, rolling down from the pinky toe to the big toe. Up from the big toe to the pinky toe, down from the pinky toe to the big toe. Just rolling through the feet, rolling through the toes. Nice. And as you do this, it might just get a little easier. If in the beginning it's absolutely terrible, that's okay. Good. And let's do 2 more rounds. Good. And 1 more time for good luck. Big toe to pinky toe to big toe. Very nice. Lift all 10 toes 1 more time and spread them as wide as you can apart. And then lower them back down. Shift your weight into one of your feet, bring the other foot forward, and let's just start to tap that foot, warming up through the ankle, warming up through the shin. Nice. Now this ankle and foot warm up, or strength and mobility session, is great to do before you do any sort of a high impact activity. So if you're a runner, if you like to do plyometrics, this is a great way to warm up before those activities. Good. Let's do 4, 3, 2, and 1. Switch sides and tap those toes. Nice. Good. Paying any attention to any imbalances side to side. Good. And let's just do a few more here. Last 2 and last 1. Bring your feet about shoulder distance apart, and let's just do a few squats. And here, we're not looking to work the legs at all. We're just thinking about how the squat feels. How do the ankles feel? How do the feet feel? We'll come back to this at the end and see if we've done any good through our session. So let's do 4 more squats here, and 3, and 2, and 1. Now, for this next part of the session, I'm going to have a seat. If you'd like to have a seat, you can as well. I'm going to cross one ankle over the other thigh, and I'm just going to work on a little bit of mobility through the arch of the foot. So to start, I'm just going to take my hand onto my heel so that my heel doesn't move. It's going to stay nice and still. I'm going to take my other hand onto the arch of my foot. So I've got my thumb wrapped around and the fingers across the top of the arch. And I just want to mobilize the arch by kind of twisting it back and forth here. So again, I'm keeping the heel still and I'm twisting the foot back and forth. So the foot is meant to absorb so much impact as we move through our daily life, and it can do that most efficiently if it's a mobile foot, if it doesn't feel stuck, right? That way the forces that are traveling through it don't get stuck in one portion of the foot, but they can travel up the chain and get released through the body, right? Good. Let's do 4 more here. And 3, twisting back and forth, 2, and 1. Now I'm going to keep that same hand position and keep the arch of my foot and the ball of my foot still. And now I'm going to simply twist my heel. Now the heel does have a little bit of mobility. It may not be as much as the arch or the toes, but you should be able to feel it wiggling a little bit side to side. And that's what we want. We want it to be nice and supple. Good. Let's do 4 more here. And 3, and 2, and 1. Now we're going to move the heel and the rest of the foot in opposition to one another. So if the heel is twisting forward, the arch is twisting back, and reverse. So back and forth here, working the forefoot and the heel in opposition to one another. Nice. Let's do 4 more, and 3, and 2, and 1. I'm going to take that foot down to the floor, and I'm just going to take note of how my 2 feet feel. So the foot that I've worked on, for me, feels nice and grounded, kind of heavy, and it feels like my foot is connected to my ankle, to my knee, to my thigh, to my hip. The other foot kind of feels like it's resting on top of the floor and doesn't feel as weighted into the floor. Okay, let's just reverse that, going to the other side. So I'll cross one ankle over. I'm going to hold onto my heel so it stays nice and steady. I'm going to bring the hand to the forefoot, and I'm just going to start twisting again that foot back and forth. Good. So you've got tons of little bones in these feet. I think it's 26. And so they're meant to be mobile, right? They're meant to move in all sorts of directions. So again, they can transmit that force through the body. Good. 4 more here. And 1. Now let's hold that forefoot steady and move the heel side to side, back and forth here. Good. Don't be surprised if it feels like you're not moving at all, especially on the heel. Let's do 4 more, and 3, and 2, and 1. Now we'll start to move those 2 hands in opposition to one another. So as the heel wraps forward, the toes wrap back, and switch, and switch, and switch, and switch. And we'll do a few more here. Nice. Let's do 4 more, and 3, and 2, and 1. Good. I'm going to take that foot down to the floor. And now for me, they both feel nice and grounded and kind of alive. Okay? So now we're going to take our Theraband and we're going to start working that Theraband. I'm going to come down to sit on the floor because it's more comfortable for me. But if you are seated in a chair and it's comfortable for you, please stay in your chair, especially if you have tight hamstrings. Now I'm just going to move the box out of my way slightly. I'm going to take one of my feet forward, and what we're going to do is we're going to take this Theraband. Again, I have a light Theraband today, but light to medium is fine. And I'm going to wrap that little Theraband around my big toe. I'm going to sit up nice and tall. I have a little tension on my Theraband, and you can always adjust that. You do want a slight bit. My upper body is going to stay steady here. Notice I flexed my foot. I'm pulling my toes back towards my shin. I'm going to try to maintain that dorsiflexion and just bring my toes forward. So I'm kind of curling my toes around. And we'll just keep on doing this here, working the strength of the feet against that slight resistance of the Theraband. Nice. Good. If you're not used to working your feet, you might fatigue fairly quickly, and that's okay. I would suggest doing these exercises, especially if you have things going on with your feet, 2 to 3 times a week, especially if you're doing those impactful activities. Good. And 2 more times here, and 1 more time. Then we're going to shift that Theraband to wrap around the second and the third toe, and we're simply going to do that exercise again. So very simple. Keeping the foot flexed and just bending the toes forward, thinking about reaching them along like you're trying to grip onto something on the floor if you were standing on the floor. And let's do 4 more here, and 3, and 2, and 1. Take that band and simply move it down around the 4th and the 5th toe, and we'll repeat that exercise 1 more time. Reaching those toes forward, but keeping the foot flexed at the ankle. Nice. Last 4, 3, 2, and 1. Remove that side, and we'll transition to the other side. So extending the other leg forward, wrapping the Theraband around the big toe. You've got a little bit of tension there. And now wrap the toes forward, but keep the foot flexed at the ankle. Good. Nice. So let's say we do like 6 to 10 repetitions. Nice. Shift the Theraband over around the second and the third toe now, and wrap them forward. Good. If you ever do get a cramp while you're doing these exercises, just take a break. You might start with less repetitions and then work up if you're feeling that your feet have a tendency to cramp. Nice. Last time, around the 4th and the 5th toe, foot is flexed at the ankle, and again, reaching those toes forward. Good. Last 2, and last 1. Remove that band. Now, let's take the Theraband and wrap it over the forefoot. So my toes are included here, right? My toes are wrapped up in there, and I've got a little more tension than I had before, and I'm going to pull back so that my heel drives forward. I get a little stretch down the hamstring and through the back of the calf, and then I'm going to push my toes forward into that band and flex and point and flex and point. Again, you can do this with the hips elevated. Nice job. Watching that the ankle stays nice and aligned, and that you don't go into pronation or supination of the foot, but that the second and third toe continue to reach straight forward. The last 3, 2, and 1. We'll switch sides, making sure that the toes are wrapped into the Theraband, holding on with a bit of tension, and then wrapping the toes forward and back, forward and back. Nice, 4 more here. If you are doing this before an exercise activity, you could choose to do some, not all of the exercises, if you would prefer. Good, and 1 more time here. But I would definitely do a little bit of flexion and extension, a little bit of activation of the toes, and a little bit of side to side movement for the arch. Now I'm switching back to my other foot 1 more time. And for me, I'm going to start by taking my band to the inside of my extended leg. So it's in one of my hands. I can anchor my elbow down if it's comfortable for me. I just want to find a comfortable position for the upper body. And now I'm going to take my foot and pronate it, or supinate it and pronate it. So I'm going side to side with my foot, and I'm trying to keep my hand nice and still as I do that. And this feels a bit like half stretch and half strength for me. Nice. If you have a tendency to supinate, right, which is this way, turning the toes in, like walking on the outside of your foot, then you might choose to do more of this exercise because you're working the resistance to the outside. Now we're just going to simply change out our hands and hold the band to the other side. I'm going to anchor my hand down to the floor, and we're going to work with the resistance coming from the other direction. So if you had a tendency to pronate, you might do a few more repetitions, having the resistance coming from the outside to the inside. Good, last 2 and 1. Let's switch out the feet. Good, okay. And mobilize the ankle side to side here. Good. Last time. And move the band to the outside of that ankle, outside of that maybe knee, and go side to side again. Good. Now just take both feet into the Theraband. Make sure those toes are included inside the band. Anchor the hands maybe on the thighs, and rock those toes forward and flex both feet back. Good. And here, working both feet at the same time. You can kind of see if one foot wants to lead the way, and try to balance out the movement on both feet the best you can. I am articulating my toes as well, so it's just not flexion and extension of the ankle, but I'm also mobilizing through the toes. Last 2, and last 1. Good. Let's remove that Theraband and come back up to standing here. Bringing the feet sit bone distance apart or maybe a little bit wider. And then we'll rock up onto the balls of the feet and then lower the heels down and just see how that feels here. Bringing the heels straight up through the center of the calf. When my heels come back down to the ground, I'm lifting all 10 toes, kind of going forward and then back with a little bit of a rocking motion. Nice. My feet just feel really good. Take your feet a little bit wider and let's try that squat that we did at the beginning. Squatting down and up and just noticing if this feels a little more lubricated. For me, I feel like, yes, my feet feel good, but actually my knees and my hips feel really nice and supple as well. Sometimes working the bottom of the chain affects all the way up, right? And then lastly, if you want to come with me, you can either lift the heels coming up onto the balls of the feet out of your squat, or try a little light jump and see if that feels good to you. Good. Nice, and maybe 2 more. And 1. And then come all the way to standing. I hope that that made your feet and your lower body feel great. Again, try to do this little session prior to any plyometric activity, maybe before a jump board workout, maybe before a jog, and see if that improves how you feel. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again soon. Bye, guys.